Heating costs are exploding, but our grandparents managed to keep their houses warm without wasting a cent on gas or electricity. Sounds unbelievable? I'll show you 30 ancient hacks that work better today than modern heaters. If you're tired of unnecessarily burning money in winter, subscribe to our channel. Wear multiple layers of clothing on top of each other. Grandma still knew how to properly arm herself when winter moved into the house. She started with a light layer directly on the skin, usually made of cotton, which kept it dry and allowed it to breathe. Over that, she layered warm wool, dense and soft, a fabric that held warmth like a treasure. On top, she wore a heavy sweater or jacket that warded off the frosty breath of the rooms. This created a small climate, layer by layer, with tiny air cushions that accompanied every movement. When Grandma stepped into the unheated kitchen early in the morning or fetched wood from the shed, you heard the rustle of the fabrics. You knew she had it under control. The warmth stayed with her, on her own body. Long underwear as a heat source. Underwear was more than a piece of clothing. It was a heat storage. Thin, close-fitting, barely visible under dresses and pants, and yet indispensable when the cold crept through walls and floors. Cotton lay softly on the skin, wool sealed in every warmth, like a sealed vessel. Grandma spoke fondly of her long undergarments, which she took out of the drawer in autumn and neatly stacked, ready for the long months. It was a ritual that belonged to the season, like the first frost. Anyone who put it on once immediately felt this quiet security, as if an invisible protective cloak enveloped the body. As unassuming as it was, the long underwear kept the warmth firmly where it is most valuable, right next to us. Wool socks and house slippers as temperature regulators. Warm feet meant comfort. As soon as the cold seeped into the floor, one reached for thick wool socks, often knitted by Grandma herself. Every stitch told of long evenings at the kitchen table, of the rhythm of the needles and the smell of wood fire. Wool held the warmth firmly, even if the floor was damp, and gave a dry, pleasant feeling. Over that came house slippers, sometimes made of felt, sometimes of lambskin, which acted like a second protective layer. Equipped like this, one could start the day, walk over creaking floorboards, out to the shed or into the cold pantry. Whoever felt the warmth on their feet soon felt it in the whole body. That's why wool socks and house slippers were more than clothing. They were a piece of winter happiness. House sweaters and jackets instead of turning up the heat. In many houses, it hung over the chair in the kitchen or lay ready on the sofa, the house sweater, thickly knitted, heavy on the shoulders, and yet familiar like an old friend. Grandma had her own, made of wool, worn at the elbows, but irreplaceable. She slipped into it as soon as the evenings got cold, and it accompanied her through long winter days. Next to the sweater lay cardigans and vests ready, each with a story, each passed down from generation to generation. Whoever slipped into it immediately felt the stored warmth of the fabric, sometimes also the fine smell of soap or smoke from the stove. This made clothing a fixed part of everyday life, a personal heat source that gave comfort, without fuss and without noise. Hats and scarves keep warmth at the head. A warm head and a protected neck were indispensable in winter. As soon as the wind blew through cracks and doors, one reached for hat and scarf. Wool was the material of choice, densely knitted and resilient. It held the warmth firmly where the body needed it most. Grandma often sat in the evening with knitting needles in hand, creating patterns that were passed down from generation to generation. Sometimes plain, sometimes colorful, but always reliable. The scarf snuggled tightly around the neck, the hat sat firmly, and suddenly the house felt a bit warmer. It wasn't just clothing, it was care bound in stitches, a piece of everyday life that gave comfort. Turtleneck sweaters for warmth at the neck. A turtleneck sweater not only kept the body warm, it protected especially the neck. There, where the cold set in first, the collar lay close and left no gap free. Knitted from thick wool, it was soft and at the same time firm, a piece of clothing that gave support. Grandma swore by her turtlenecks. She always said that a warm neck is half the health. On winter evenings, when the frost drew on the windows outside, one slipped into it and immediately felt this special comfort. The fabric lay like a familiar hand around the neck, reliable, quiet, and always present. This made the turtleneck sweater a constant companion through the cold season. Use thick blankets at night. Grandma always had a stack of thick blankets ready when the nights got cold. Made of wool or patched from old fabric, they were heavy and warm, like a protective shield against the chill. Before bed, she'd layer them over the bedding, creating a cocoon of heat that lasted until morning. The weight pressed the warmth close to the body, and the faint smell of lavender or stored wool added a sense of home. No electric blanket could match this simple, natural warmth that wrapped you in comfort all night long. Seal windows with old rags or tape. When the wind whistled through the windows, Grandma didn't hesitate. She'd stuff old rags into the cracks or use tape to seal the edges, turning each window into a fortress against the cold. The rags, often from worn-out clothes, were soft and pliable, fitting perfectly into every gap. The tape, sometimes homemade from flour paste and paper, held firm. The room stayed warmer, the drafts disappeared, and the house felt snug without a single heater running. It was a quiet, resourceful fix that kept the cold at bay. Hang heavy curtains. Grandma hung thick, heavy curtains over every window, especially on the north side where the cold lingered. Made of wool or lined with old blankets, they blocked out the chill and trapped the day's warmth inside. She'd draw them closed as soon as the sun dipped, creating a barrier that made the room feel cozier instantly. The fabric swayed slightly with the drafts, but the warmth stayed put. It was a simple trick that turned windows into walls of insulation, saving heat without effort. Use rugs on cold floors. Cold floors were no match for Grandma's rugs. She'd lay them down in the kitchen, living room, and hallways, often woven from scraps or worn-out clothes. The thick layers of fabric insulated the icy tiles or wood, making every step a warm one. She'd shake them out weekly, keeping them fresh, and their muted colors added a homely touch. With rugs underfoot, the house felt warmer, and the chill never seeped up through the soles, turning a simple floor into a source of comfort. Place aluminum foil behind radiators. Though Grandma relied little on radiators, she knew how to make them work better when needed. She'd place shiny aluminum foil behind them, reflecting the heat back into the room instead of letting it escape through the wall. The foil, often salvaged from kitchen use, was crumpled and smoothed out, creating a makeshift mirror for warmth. The room felt cozier, and the heat stayed where it belonged. It was a clever, low-cost hack that maximized every bit of energy. Cook on the stove for extra heat. Grandma turned cooking into a heating hack. She'd simmer soups or stews on the wood stove for hours, letting the gentle heat spread through the kitchen. The aroma of broth filled the air, and the warmth radiated outward, warming hands and hearts alike. Even on mild days, she'd keep a pot on, not just for food, but to chase away the chill. It was a dual-purpose trick that fed the family and the house at the same time. Dry clothes indoors. When laundry day came, Grandma hung the wet clothes on racks inside, near the stove or a sunny window. The damp fabric released moisture that warmed the air as it dried, creating a humid, cozy atmosphere. The faint scent of clean linen mingled with the room's warmth, and the house felt lived in and snug. It was a practical way to heat the space while taking care of chores, turning necessity into a warming ritual. Use a hot water bottle. Grandma's hot water bottle was a nightly ritual. She'd fill it with boiling water from the kettle, wrap it in a towel, and place it at the foot of the bed or against her back. The heat seeped into the blankets, warming the whole bed before she climbed in. The rubber bottle, often faded but sturdy, held the warmth for hours, making cold nights bearable. It was a simple, reusable trick that brought instant comfort without electricity. Sit close to the fireplace. When the fire crackled in the hearth, Grandma gathered the family around it. The flickering flames threw off heat, and sitting close, sometimes on cushions or a low stool, maximized the warmth. She'd adjust the logs to keep a steady burn, and the room filled with a golden glow and toasty air. It wasn't just about heat, it was a social hub that warmed both body and soul, making the fireplace the heart of the home. Insulate walls with newspapers. Grandma stuffed old newspapers into the gaps between wall panels or behind loose boards to keep the cold out. The crinkled pages acted as a thick makeshift insulator, trapping air and blocking drafts. She'd layer them carefully, sometimes taping them in place, and the room felt noticeably warmer. The faint rustle of paper became a sign of her ingenuity, turning yesterday's news into a shield against winter's bite. Cover floors with cardboard. On especially cold days, Grandma laid cardboard boxes flat across the floors, especially in high traffic areas. The corrugated layers insulated against the icy ground, adding a surprising amount of warmth underfoot. She'd overlap the pieces and weigh them down with rugs or furniture, creating a temporary barrier. It was a quick fix that made the house feel cozier, proving even packaging could serve a purpose beyond delivery. Use candle warmers. Grandma lit candles not just for light but for heat. She'd place them in a circle under an upside-down clay pot or metal tray, creating a small radiator effect. The flame's heat warmed the surface, which then radiated into the room. It was a gentle, flickering warmth that supplemented the stove, and the soft glow added a calming ambiance. A handful of candles turned into a clever, low-cost heater. Preheat the oven and leave the door open. After baking bread or a roast, Grandma would leave the oven door open, letting the residual heat spill into the kitchen. The warm air rose, chasing away the chill and filling the room with the scent of fresh dough. She'd sit nearby, soaking in the warmth, turning a cooking task into a heating opportunity. It was a practical way to extend the oven's usefulness long after the meal was done. Wear fingerless gloves indoors. Grandma kept her hands warm with fingerless gloves, knitted from leftover wool. They allowed her to knit, sew, or handle small tasks, while keeping her fingers agile yet cozy. The open fingertips let her work, but the wool trapped heat around her knuckles and palms. It was a balance of function and warmth, perfect for those chilly indoor days when a full glove was too much. Use a bed warmer. Before electric blankets, Grandma used a bed warmer, a metal pan filled with hot coals or stones, slid between the sheets to preheat the bed. She'd move it slowly to avoid burns, then remove it before climbing in. The lingering heat turned the cold mattress into a warm haven, making sleep come easier. It was a traditional hack that brought instant comfort to the night. Stack wood indoors. Grandma kept a neat stack of firewood just inside the door, ready for the stove. The wood, still carrying a bit of the forest's warmth, released heat as it acclimated to the house. The pile also acted as a natural insulator near the entrance, blocking drafts. It was a practical storage solution that doubled as a subtle heat source, keeping the entryway cozy. Insulate pipes with old socks. To prevent frozen pipes, Grandma wrapped them in old wool socks, securing them with string or tape. The socks absorbed moisture and held heat, protecting the metal from the cold. She'd check them regularly, replacing any that got damp. It was a resourceful fix that kept the water flowing and the house warm, using what was already on hand. Use a draft stopper at doors. Grandma crafted draft stoppers from rolled towels or sewn fabric tubes filled with sand or beans, placing them at the base of doors. They blocked cold air from sneaking in, keeping the room's warmth intact. The stoppers, often decorated with faded embroidery, added a homely touch while serving a vital purpose. It was a simple barrier that made a big difference. Share body heat with others. On the coldest nights, Grandma encouraged the family to huddle together under blankets, sharing body heat. Whether on the sofa or in bed, the closeness generated warmth that no heater could replicate. Laughter and stories filled the air as the combined heat wrapped around them. It was a social hack that turned necessity into a cherished tradition. Boil water for steam heat. Grandma kept a kettle or pot of water simmering on the stove, releasing steam that moistened and warmed the air. The gentle heat spread through the room, softening the dry winter chill. She'd add a cinnamon stick or cloves for scent, turning it into a cozy ritual. It was a dual-purpose trick that heated and humidified the house naturally. Place stones in the oven. Grandma would heat stones in the oven or by the fire, then wrap them in cloth and place them around the house or in bed. The stones retained heat for hours, radiating warmth slowly and steadily. She'd move them as needed, turning cold corners into warm spots. It was a timeless hack that turned simple rocks into portable heaters. Use a sunroom or south-facing room. Grandma maximized the winter sun by spending time in the south-facing room, where sunlight poured in all day. She'd open the curtains to let the rays warm the space, then close them at night to trap the heat. The room became a natural greenhouse, offering free warmth without any fuel. It was a strategic use of nature's energy. Wear ear warmers. Grandma wore knitted ear warmers to protect her ears from the cold drafts inside the house. Soft and snug, they kept her head warm without the bulk of a full hat. She'd adjust them while working, ensuring no chill reached her ears. It was a subtle but effective way to maintain comfort in a chilly home. Keep a kettle on the stove. Grandma always kept a kettle of water on the stove, both for tea and to add consistent warmth to the kitchen. The low, steady heat from the flame warmed the air, while the steam kept it humid. She'd refill it throughout the day, turning a daily habit into a gentle heating source. It was a quiet, constant companion against the cold. These are Grandma's 30 heating hacks, simple, effective, and proven over generations. They saved money and kept homes warm when modern options weren't available. If you're ready to try these out, let us know in the comments which one you'll start with. Subscribe for more timeless wisdom, and let's keep the old ways alive together.